The 18th hole at Harbour Town looks straightforward. Wide fairway with a large landing area, just 440 yards. But this hole isn't about difficulty, it's about consequence. One bad miss here, and your round is ruined. Today we're breaking down how a scratch golfer should actually play the 18th, using strokes gained methodology, factoring in for dispersion, and building a target strategy that takes the big numbers out of play. Now let's take a look at Harbour Town's finishing hole. This is a 440-yard par 4, with the iconic lighthouse framing the closing stretch. From the tee, the hole plays straight ahead, with water lining the entire left side from tee to green. The fairway is relatively wide, but is defined by bunkers along the right side in the landing area. As the hole moves towards the green, the corridor begins to narrow, placing greater emphasis on precision. The approach is played into a long, narrow green set directly beside the water. The putting surface is protected by bunkers on the front left and slopes gently towards the hazard on the left. All of these elements come into play as we break down how this hole is actually played. Let's quantify what is actually at stake off the tee. From 440 yards, a scratch golfer is expected to take 4.08 strokes to hole out. Now let's assume a typical drive of 260 yards. That leaves 180 yards into the green. From that distance, the expected strokes to hole out depends entirely on where the ball finishes. From the fairway, it's 3.08. From the rough, 3.31. From a fairway bunker, 3.40. But the real story on this hole is the penalty. If the tee shot finds the water, the player is now hitting their third shot from roughly the same 180-yard distance. And now the expected strokes to hole out becomes 4.31. Now let's compare outcomes. Missing the fairway into the rough costs you fractions of a stroke. Missing into the bunker, slightly more. But missing left into the water is a catastrophic miss. Now let's layer dispersion onto this. A scratch golfer hitting driver about 260 yards typically has a 10% shot dispersion pattern, about 25 yards to either side. We need to factor that pattern into target line selection. The fairway in the landing area is 70 yards wide. It looks very inviting off the tee. However, we need to be careful to pick a target that accounts for this shot dispersion to ensure that the water never comes into play. Our scratch golfer commits to that line, steps up to the ball, and finds the fairway. From there, the pin is in the back left of the green and is lasered at 190 yards. Now from 190 yards in the fairway, our scratch golfer is expected to take 3.135 strokes to hole out. But from here, the outcome of the shot around the green drives everything. On the green from 30 feet, the expectation drops to 1.98 strokes. Miss to the right side of the green and it increases to 2.18. Find the rough on the right and it's 2.34. Find the front bunker left and now you're at 2.43 strokes. But just like we saw off the tee, the real penalty is the hazard on the left. If this shot finds the water, the player is now hitting their next shot from the rough beside the green, and now the expected strokes to hole out becomes 3.34. Now let's factor dispersion into this. From 190 yards, a scratch golfer has a dispersion of roughly 10% of that distance, about 19 yards per side, or 38 yards total. So just like off the tee, this isn't a single line to the pin, it's a pattern around it. If we aim directly at this back pin, part of that dispersion now moves towards the water, and that brings a costly outcome that can cost us strokes back into play. But if we shift our target slightly to the center or right side of the green, we move that entire dispersion pattern away from the hazard. A smart target might not look exciting, but it's what leads to lower scores. And at the end of the day, that's what everyone is chasing. If you found this helpful, let me know in the comments what stood out the most to you. It helps the channel more than you think.